Welcome to rSlash Today I F'd Up, where OP breaks the world record for farting. Today I F'd up by taking a bath for the first time in years. Background, I'm a shower gal. The last time I took a bath was when I was sick years ago. 2. I'm a teacher under copious amounts of stress from this lovely school year. Today, after a particularly stressful day teaching, I decided I need to do some self-care. I went to Ulta and was browsing and I stumbled upon the bath bomb section. In my head I thought, why not? Baths can't be that bad. I always see people in movies relaxing in a bath, let's give it a try. I carefully selected a pink bath bomb, and that, dear reader, is the key to my F-up. When I got home, I decided to make a night out of it. I got my book, poured myself a glass of wine, put on a bubbling face mask, and I turned on some tunes. I was sitting in the tub and I dropped in the bath bomb. It was pretty and smelled great. In order to soak in the relaxation vibes, I leaned back and, gracefully with my gangly elbows flailing about for balance, knocked my wine glass into the tub and the glass shattered instantly. So there I was in a tub with pink water, broken glass floating everywhere and bubbles all over my face from the face mask. I tried to wipe my eyes to see, but instead rubbed the bubbles in my eyes. I called for my boyfriend, who runs in and sees me crying from the soap, surrounded by glass and bloody pink water. He then sees this 3-inch long shard of glass jutting out of my back. After a mini freakout on his part, he fishes out all the glass, yanked that sucker out of my back, and had to flush out my eyes because by that point they were burning and I was hysterical. 0 out of 10 would not recommend taking a bath to de-stress. And then OP clarifies in an edit. A lot of people keep saying that glass doesn't float, so this is fake. I didn't mean like floating on the top, but rather mixing in with the water and flowing around anytime that I moved. My movement stirred the glass around, sorry for the confusion. Today I F'd up by going to get a Mountain Dew from my garage and getting a gun pointed at me instead. My dad is out of town, so I'm home alone this week. I was up really late because I screwed up and didn't do the assignment that was due in the morning. I was starting to get really tired, so I decided to get a little hit of caffeine. I went down to the garage because we have an extra fridge there and I grabbed a soda. I walked back to the door to go inside, but the door wouldn't budge. This is when I realized that I screwed up. Because not only did I lock myself out of my home with no shirt, no keys, and no phone, I also failed to remember that my home security system was armed. And right as I finished that thought, the alarm went off. I start panicking and try to force the door open so I can shut the alarm off. I realized that wasn't gonna work, and I just started pacing and freaking the F out. It took me longer than I'm proud to realize that I'm in a garage and I can just open the garage door. I raised the garage door and ran to the front door, and it's locked, of course. Fortunately for me though, there's 3 other doors on the side and the back of the house. Unfortunately for me, those 2 were locked. I defaulted back to stress pacing until I decided, screw it, the cops will be here soon and maybe they can help me. Well, I was half right. I opened the side gate and walked back to the front of the house when all of a sudden someone screams at me. Stop! Let me see your hands! I freeze up in fear because I'm realizing that 2 cops who are responding to a home invasion are now pointing a gun at me, the weird shirtless guy coming from the backyard. I complied with their orders and explained that I live here. I just set off the alarm and locked myself out. They looked up the homeowner, my dad, and gave him a call. Needless to say, my dad wasn't too happy to be receiving a call from the cops at 2 a.m. asking if the moron who locked himself out of his own house was his son. Once they were satisfied that I lived there, one police officer brought out this device that sort of just popped the door open for me. I thanked them, shut the alarm off, and used the adrenaline coursing through my veins to bust out the remainder of my homework. And then down in the comments someone asks, "Did you finish the Mountain Dew?" And OP replies, "The funny thing was, after all of that, I still completely forgot about my Mountain Dew. So it was just waiting for me in the garage when I left this morning." Today I F'd up by eating 8 chocolate fiber bars before a long car ride with my family and experiencing the most absurd gas leak in history. This happened a year ago, but I just remembered this horrific event and the poor victims who never fully recovered. I was set to go on a 10-hour road trip through the interior of British Columbia, and with me were my 2 cousins and my uncle. However, before our 6 a.m. departure, I decided the night before to wolf down these chocolate chip Fiber One granola bars that had something like 75% of your daily fiber intake. These things were crazy good, and I ended up eating an entire 8-pack of them in one sitting. After that I went to sleep, and woke up in the morning to a bloated stomach, but felt fine otherwise. 45 minutes into our ride, the cramps began. My stomach grew larger and larger, and I ended up needing to remove my seatbelt and undoing the zipper on my jeans to give it more space to expand. My cousin next to me couldn't believe what he was seeing. He said it was like the blueberry scene from Willy Wonka. I couldn't hold the gas in any longer and asked my uncle to pull over, which he did, and I struggled to get out of my seat as every move was agony. I waddled to the back of the car and let her rip. A thunderous roar escaped me like my butthole was racing his Harley Davidson around the block on a Sunday morning. The gas hissed out of me as my stomach grumbled, shuffled, and shuddered. I am not exaggerating when I tell you that this fart lasted at least 15 seconds. Little did I know that I had just broken the seal, and I would proceed to experience uncontrollable and obnoxiously powerful farts that lasted 10 to 15 seconds on average, with only a brief period of relief between said farts. The fact of the matter was that I was now experiencing major flatulence every 2 to 3 minutes, and we couldn't stop the car every few minutes to escape the smell, so we decided to roll all the windows down and allow me to let loose whenever I needed. However, we had no idea that this would become a much longer ordeal than we initially thought. Truth be told, I couldn't stop farting for nearly 7 hours. Oh my god. And each fart just had to be more epic than the last. By the time hour 2 rolled around, my butthole was sore and aching, and my insides felt like shards of glass were ripping through me. And the smell had become so overpowering that we had to stop at a gas station and buy as many air fresheners as we could. I took one of the air fresheners and sat on it in the hopes that each fart would be freshened up. Instead, it just smelled like rotten eggs and pine. My cousins and uncle resorted to using Vicks around their noses to stop the smell. The pain from constantly farting brought me to tears at one point, and I realized how ridiculous it must look to see a grown man crying while farting non-stop. At hour 4, disaster struck. I stopped farting, but I was still swelling with gas. I knew I was plugged up, and if I didn't do something soon, the pain was going to become unbearable. We stopped at a coffee shop and I ran in to use the bathroom. I gingerly sat down on the toilet and gently pushed, but the pain was too much. I resorted to pushing on my stomach to help things along, and suddenly I felt this wave of pressure hit me that made my butt cheeks break into a cold sweat and start to tingle. Suddenly, and without warning, a rock-hard turd rocketed out of me like a cannonball and plastered itself into the back of the toilet bowl. And with that, this tidal wave of what could only be described as as peanut butter oatmeal. I could feel the muscles in my abdomen squeezing my intestines so hard that it actually hurt. It was like when you're throwing up and you feel your stomach violently squish itself to push everything out. But instead it was my butt that was throwing up. Once everything was pushed out, it was topped off by the longest fart in my short, pathetic existence. One that I could never accurately give the length for, other than to say that it was over 20 seconds, and I could literally feel and see my stomach shrinking. I destroyed that poor coffee shop bathroom, and I frequently wonder what happened to the person who wandered in after me. From that point forward, the farts were just as frequent and long, but they felt cleaner and less restricted. It began to feel like I was airing out my colon, blowing out all the accumulated dust. My ribs and anus ached horribly, but I was starting to feel euphoria wash over me, that I assumed was just the endorphin rush my body was giving as a way to protect my fragile mind from this ridiculous ordeal. By the time hour 7 had rolled around, my farts had slowly faded away. But the smell permeated my clothes and the seat behind me. My family had gone through almost an entire container of Vicks. And they appeared to have survived the ordeal, but I could tell that a part of them was broken that could never be fixed. It was as though they felt violated by having to breathe in my butt breath for 7 hours. And I knew that my uncle was upset that his car's interior would never smell the same again, as it already smelled like hot garbage by this point. We eventually arrived without incident, and we refused to speak of this event again. Things were never really the same between all of us after that, and I have a feeling none of us will ever touch eggs again. They already ate enough of my farts, they don't need a reminder. I should have never eaten that much fiber. I had no idea it was capable of that. Too long didn't read. I made 15-second farts on average with an average rate of 1 fart every 3 minutes. That means I was farting an average of 300 seconds an hour, or 2100 seconds over 7 hours. I farted for 35 minutes. Today I effed up by losing my cat on the side of the highway somewhere in Kentucky. I recently closed my lease in Florida to move back to my dad's house in Chicago. I'm working from home and don't need to be paying rent in Florida if I can just live with family instead. So I packed my stuff up, store the rest in a storage unit, close my lease, and hit the road. My cat, Randall Flagg, accompanied me in the car as we drove through Florida, Georgia, Tennessee, and then Kentucky. I was going about 105 miles per hour in a 70 mile per hour zone when a Kentucky state trooper pulled me over. I was making incredible time moving that quickly, but obviously the risk is being pulled over, or death. Anyway, the state trooper comes to the passenger side of my car to stay away from the highway speed traffic. My car was already off, so my window didn't roll down when I tried that. Instead, he opened the door. During the discussion, we actually addressed the fact that my cat Randall could escape, and I asked if I could step out of the car to keep it sealed. That didn't end up happening. After the traffic stop, maybe about a minute of driving later, I realize Randall is not in the car anymore. And I get a bolt of absolute panic. I pull over again, this time without a state trooper behind me. I frantically shout for him inside the car. I check the foot boxes, seat, his little nooks, nothing. My mind racing, I leave the car on the side of the highway and begin running back south to where I was pulled over. I reach the area, completely spent. My voice is totally thrashed from shouting over the sound of the highway for Randall. The woman who lives next to the highway where I was pulled over hasn't seen him. I have burrs all over my shoes and shorts from tromping through the Kentucky woods and fields next to the highway. I call the non-emergency state phone number, my vet, my mom, my dad. I spend 45 minutes shouting and walking along the highway in serious emotional distress. My boy, my best bud is lost in these stupid woods somewhere. I see a state trooper nearby. He's very helpful and actually drives me back around to the area that I lost Randall to keep looking. And he gets the officer who pulled me over to come back also. No luck. I interact with more nice families in the area, leaving my number with them. Randall Flagg is hiding somewhere out there and he's too scared to come out. Or, God forbid, he was hit. I can't stop thinking about that right now. The officers help me relax and take me back to my car back north up the highway. A detective with the troopers helps me look around the car again, just in case. No Randall. My car is now dead when I try to start it because the hazard lights were on too long. Great. I have some jumper cable stuffed inside of my car somewhere, but my car is full of stuff since I'm moving, so I have to start pulling things out. The trooper with me didn't have cables, somehow. So I'm pulling bags out to access the area where the cables are when I see mother effing Randall Flagg's fuzzy black butt inside a half-full garbage bag that had a lot of my clothes and towels in it. He's totally asleep, peaceful as a fat baby. I apologize to the officers profusely, but they're completely professional about it, just glad that he's been found. They helped me jump my car and get it rolling again. I stayed much closer to the speed limit after that. Randall Flagg and I safely made it to Chicago the next day. He's extremely comfortable here at my dad's. Today I effed up by accidentally rickrolling 8 cities. I currently work for my local government in their communications department, making videos, flyers, social media posts, and pretty much everything else they need. Part of the job involves putting in placeholder text and links since I'll be told, we need a link to this resource, but it's not available yet. There's an unspoken agreement that if I'm not given an actual link, I'll link to random things. Sometimes it's a viral video, sometimes it's an anime meme, and sometimes it's a music video to what I'm listening to. This is just for the rough draft, so it doesn't matter, and it just gives me something fun to do. For the past few months, I've been working on a large campaign of flyers to promote a program to my neighboring area of 500,000 people. At the time, I was listening to a lot of 80s new wave, and I decided to see if anyone was actually testing that the QR codes and shorteners worked, so I directed everything to go to Rick Astley. I figured that if anyone checked it, I'd get an email commenting on it. Time goes by, the official links are the last to be given to me, so I add them in. I send everything to my supervisor to approve before going to the printer to have 5,000 copies printed of each variation. My work with the project is done now, and now it's up to other people to start putting up the flyers while I move on to the next project. That was 2 weeks ago. This morning, I get pulled into a Zoom meeting with the other department heads and their bosses. They ask me about the link, and I tell them that I checked the QR code and shortener before sending it in for review, and if there's an error to look at the printer. I even pulled up the finalized versions and verified that it works. They get more serious and say that the printer wouldn't replace the links with a music video, thinking that I screwed it up or just did it on purpose. It turns out that the posters and flyers have been put up around the county in local businesses, bus stops, out lobbies, etc., and emails started to come in. I'm more surprised that anyone actually used the QR codes and links to begin with. After getting grilled and thinking that I was going to be fired, I forwarded the email that I sent to my supervisor with the final version of the graphics, and they went to the correct links. The best that we can figure out is that since there had been dozens of versions over a few months, that someone along the chain of commands mixed up an earlier version that included the Rickroll link when placing the order. But no one wants to take the blame for it. We're currently in the process of recalling everything and debating on having stickers printed out to cover the links or pay to have everything reprinted. Even though it wasn't my fault, I'm now supposed to use dummy links and QR codes that go to an image of a tree. My time of adding random music videos has been halted. OP, it's too bad that they changed the rules and now you can't link to whatever you want to. So now, you know the rules, and so do I. That was rSlash Today I F'd Up, and if you like this content, check out my Patreon where I publish extra episodes. Also, hit that subscribe button because I put out new Reddit videos every single day.